take it. I'll take that offensive line. All right, Mark Schlereth, the great offensive lineman, multiple Super Bowls and Pro Bowls. Listen, you know, it's funny.
I'm with you,
Yes, you know, Dave Wannstedt said something the other day. He goes, everybody's blaming the officials for these penalties. He goes, we won't play the offensive lineman in preseason. They can't hit in practice. The CBA has eliminated. He goes, offensive line's a specialty position. The best athletes are on the defensive line.
Dude, let me just give you a kind of a scenario.
Okay.
Because I was an offensive lineman.
Yeah.
You've got to be a great athlete to play offensive line. We're the worst athletes on the football field by a long shot, right?
Right.
I mean, think about, you've seen a corner transition to safety. You've seen a safety transition to linebacker. You've seen a linebacker transition to D-end. You've seen a D-end transition to offensive or defensive tackle. You've seen a D-tackle transition to offensive line. Offensive line, fan. That's the transition. Like you are the last rung on the ladder.
Offensive lineman, garbage man.
Right.
I mean,
that's the way it works. So by far, and I will tell you this, you know, I get pissed off when I hear skill position this. There's no greater skill than moving a man from point A to point B who has equal strength, who's 300 pounds and you're 300 pounds. That's technique, and that's a skill that has to be developed. And we have a league where we don't allow these guys to develop the skill.
Yeah, that's what Wannstedt said. He said, we're blaming the referees for the penalties, but we keep taking time. He goes, of all the, you know, there's always been an understanding in recruiting. Right. You can take a high school running back, and if he's great, he can play as a freshman. Alabama will play a freshman.
Sure.
You can take a great corner in college. You can put him into the NFL, he can play. Le'Veon Bell doesn't play for a year and a half. Boom, he's good. Offensive line, it is practice and chemistry and hands and feet, and we've eliminated a lot of the time they practice.
Dude, if you and I just came in the studio here and played catch, like, we could throw the ball back and forth. We'd catch it. We'd throw it. It'd be great, right?
Right.
If we moved this coffee table, did one-on-ones right here, I'd open a can of whoop ass on you right here because I have developed that skill over the course of my lifetime. You haven't. By the way, I have to tell you, too, on the Chicago thing, you were talking about that defense. Like, I did their game 2 weeks ago in Denver.
You did.
And I got to tell you, so I deep dive into the coach's tape, right? And I'm looking at this defense. I literally got diarrhea watching it. It made me so nervous because they are that good.
They're so fast.
Every level. And even the backups, I mean, guys that you've never heard of. You're like, oh, my God, who is this? Who's 95? Roy Robertson Harris? You know, like, who is that guy? I looked at it like from Khalil Mack to Hakeem Hicks to Roquan Smith has got, like, the ability to diagnose a play like Ray Lewis and the speed of a guy like Junior Sam. I mean, the guy could play safety.
No, you can watch.
It's unbelievable.
You don't have to be a scout. You can watch the Bears defense. There's 3 or 4 things. Like, you watch Kansas City's offense. I mean, you watch the Chicago Bears defense, and you're like, okay, that. And by the way, this is true, and this has happened in the NFL for years. There are organizations that draft positions and side of the ball better. New England does not draft receivers well. They do not. Pittsburgh does. Chicago has historically drafted linebackers and pass rushers.
Sure.
There's some scout in that organization. There is some organizational scout or executive for Chicago. Same with Pittsburgh and wide receivers. There's a guy in that staff that's figured out wide receivers. New England needs that guy because they can't figure out wide receivers. Let me go to this. Baker overrated thing. So, you know, I think Rex Ryan's a little harsh here. But there is something I want to talk about. That you have to play to your skill set. Big Ben and Aaron Rodgers would prefer to ad-lib out of trouble, but they're athletically special. Aaron's got a special arm. He's an athlete. Big Ben is a special size. Baker, I think, has a little DNA that he wants to move around, but he's a small guy. He's very much Drew Brees physically. In fact, I think Drew's a better athlete. Baker ran a 4.84. Is that when I watch Baker and his rollout, Chris Collinsworth said this, Mark, in the broadcast, he says he bails too fast. He's out to the right. The problem is when you run a 4.84 in 2019 in the NFL, when he bails, he's not significantly faster than the defensive lineman. I think Baker's limitations athletically make him a pocket passer. I think that's what he is. I don't think it's what he wants or is comfortable being. Does that sound crazy?
No, it doesn't sound crazy, although I did one of his games last year, and I was fascinated. Like, I was blown away by his ability, his understanding, his pocket presence, to climb the pocket, to slide in the pocket, and to throw the ball from the pocket. And that's what he was really good at last year. It's amazing, though, and you talked about the offensive line. Take one of your best offensive linemen, probably the best one you have in Kevin Zeitler, and just go ahead and trade him to the Giants because you want to load up on Olivier Vernon,
who hasn't had double-digit sacks since Miami.
But so you get one right of like Baker's not a guy, and you talked about it, the edge. It's really hard in this league to be a quarterback that can get to the edge and get beyond the edge.
Lamar Jackson, you can just see it. It's special.
There's a few guys that are special that way athletically, but these defensive ends, Colin, they're freaky. They're running 4.4s. They're 4.38s, and they're 265.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a league of athletic freak shows, is what it is. And so all of a sudden, you had best be able to climb a pocket, to manipulate a pocket, and to understand, that you can get up in there, slide a little bit right to left, and open up a window. And he did it really well last year. I'll tell you the other thing that's interesting to me, and I don't think we make enough of the way teams kind of adjust or the way they make decisions. So here you go with a head coach that started the season last year
as a position coach,
the quarterback's coach. He was the quarterback's coach. Then when they ended up firing everybody, he was elevated to the offensive coordinator. Then Freddie Kitchens goes from offensive coordinator, where he's hand in hand with Baker, and they're working on things together, to all of a sudden, I'm play calling, but I'm also the head coach, responsible for the clock, responsible for talking to the defense, responsible for everything. So you lose some of that connectivity. And I think it's really hard to be in a rhythm as a play caller when you have other stuff on your mind as well. So I think there's a lot of different factors, and this is why I was down on Cleveland coming in. Not because I don't think Baker can play, and not because I don't think Odell can play, and not because I don't think they have talented players. I think it's much easier to deal with failure. The human condition says to me it's much easier to deal with failure because it's something that motivates you than it is to deal with success. And they read their press clippings. I haven't seen, they're in every national commercial in America.
Baker Mayfield may be in 13 commercials.
So I think that that's part of human nature. And I think that this is kind of what's catching up to the Cleveland Browns right now.
All right, stick around, would you?
Yeah, absolutely.
I know you're busy today. I know you got a lot of things.
I am so popular.
You got to pay for that pocket square, so just stick around here. I got to pay some bills. Folks, you've heard me talk about Butcher Box now for about 5-6 months. Over the weekend, had a big grill party. It's Sunday night at the Herd Grotto. Browns, Rams, lot of...
Sounds delicious. My invite must have been lost.
ButcherBox.com, customizable boxes, free shipping, makes it about $6-7 a meal. Best farms, animals humanely raised, no hormones or antibiotics ever. They got free-range chicken, grass-fed beef, heritage breed pork, wild-caught Alaska Bay salmon. By the way, Bristol Bay, you know where Bristol Bay is.
Sure.
You're an Alaska boy. And
yes, I am.
Everybody in my high school, I lived in a fishing village. People would go to Bristol Bay for the summer and make their money doing their
big bucks.
Big bucks. My left guard in high school made 6 figures legally.
Yeah.
By being a commercial salmon kid in Alaska.
Yeah.
Anyway, I got off the point here. ButcherBox.com/herd. More than anybody needed to know. ButcherBox.com/HERD. $20 off members and free beef for the life of your subscription.